Hello and welcome to the European Resilience Initiative Center video podcast. Today, our guest is Enno Lenze. He is a founder of Berlin Story Bunker Museum. He is an author of several books and a security expert. Welcome, Enno.
Hello, Sergej.
Enno, you have spent many years working with your security firm in all possible regions in the world, in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Israel, everywhere in the Middle East, and since 2022 also in Ukraine. When you came to Ukraine, what was your impression? What is different in Ukraine compared to all your experience before that time?
The resilience of the people is much different, much bigger, and the speed of rebuilding. If you go through Iraq or Afghanistan, you can still see Soviet tanks, but from the Soviet times, being there, blown up, nobody moved them, nobody cares, still destroyed bridges, streets. While in Ukraine, if you were gone for like 6 weeks, they basically remodeled the whole city. That's impressive, yes.
That was, as many said, the reason why the United States believed that Ukraine will fall or would fall within the first weeks, because they had the experience from Afghanistan. As soon as the US troops left Afghanistan, the Taliban took over Kabul, and they believed in Ukraine would happen the same with the Russian invasion. But it was obviously two countries which one could not compare from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the Taliban, they didn't really took Kabul after the West left. I mean, the Taliban provided the security for the withdrawal in the Kabul airport while the West was withdrawing. That was kind of bizarre. The Taliban did the perimeter safety while the Americans and Western did it inside. And also the Afghan government fled before the Taliban even arrived. So the Taliban didn't even have a chance to threaten them because they were already gone. And I mean, even now, I haven't heard a single word of the Afghanistan's government which now lives abroad. So I don't hear anything from the president or from the foreign minister or whatever. So they vanished. That's not how you rule a country from exile. Yeah, but I mean,
exactly. That is the question. Where is the exile government of Afghanistan?
Yeah, I mean, a few of them. One former minister, he now joined RAND Corporation, the deputy minister of mining. So they make good use of their knowledge, but not as a government. And yeah, I mean, with this in mind, and I mean, honestly, most people in the Western world never really heard of Ukraine. They know Chernobyl and that's it. I think they didn't have any idea how people in Ukraine could react. They saw it as like, some Soviet republic and corrupt. And so I guess the general picture was between nothing and bad in the West. And so I think there was these two very, very important events, like right at the beginning of the war. The famous quote, "Russian warship, go yourself." When I heard that, I said, you made this up. It cannot be. This did not happen. Then, okay, it happened. Cool. And then, of course, a selfie video of Zelensky with the other guys saying, hey, we're here. Said, and this is what the Afghan government didn't do. Staying there and saying, I'm still here, let's fight. I think these two events were crucial for what happened like in the last 2 years.
And your first time to Ukraine was already after the full-scale invasion of February 22.
No. I was there in December 2021 in Kramatorsk. I met OSCE drivers from the special monitoring mission and asked them, will there be a war? Because I thought they are on the mission, and the drivers who are really driving around, usually they have a very good idea of what's going on. And they're not so much into politics, they just see what they see. And all of them told me, there won't be a war, he can't be this stupid. And I thought, okay, they will know it.
Yeah, but obviously the level of danger which the drivers were constantly exposed lowered their the level of how they perceive the threat. So they couldn't read the signs anymore because there were a lot
Yeah.
of signs all the time. So they couldn't read the additional signs. I heard that in the east of Ukraine, many people didn't believe in war because they lived amid danger all the time, and they couldn't believe that some more tanks across the border would mean any significant escalation. But when you came after the full-scale invasion, one of your first trips were to liberated Bucha, and was it a shock for the West?
I think so. And I mean, I was there by chance. Of course, first I went to Lviv to see what's going on. And then I asked people like, can we go to Kiev? Is it safe? Yeah, more or less. It was when the Russians were still the last day around Kiev. And then when we finally decided to go, we had to go through this, basically the Zhytomyr-Kiev highway, the E40. And so we passed Bucha, or we were next to it, and the highway was full of dead bodies, and the fuel stations basically shot up, and it was really like driving through a horror movie. And my first impression was, well, this is war. I've seen it before. I know this is going to happen. So, okay, here it is. And I was really a bit surprised by the reaction of the West when they said, wow, Bucha, this was like crazy. I was like, what did you expect? Like, we know what Russians doing all over the world since decades, and it's not in some secret books hidden like in a vault. It's on CNN, it's on BBC, it's, you can Google it, it's on Wikipedia. And then it happened again, and the West said, oh wow, we're shocked. And so I said, okay, do I have to make the shocked face now? Like, do I have to play surprised like everybody else? Because this was exactly what I expected from the Russians, nothing else. But I think for so many people, it was a shock. And even a lot of people I knew, when the full-scale invasion started, they said, oh, what's going on there? What's happening? I said, well, you know that they took Crimea 10 years ago and now it's going on. And they said, never heard of this. Said like people who went to university, who read newspaper, they never heard anything about Crimea. I said, are you stupid or what? Like, are we living in the same world? And then, of course, when you never heard of Aleppo, not of Grozny, not of Czechia and Chechnya, sorry, and of course, then you're very surprised that war means dead people and that Russians in war means cruelty and torture and killing and raping and everything. And let's say I was surprised how surprised the West was, because, I mean, educated people should have known this a long time ago. And even now, when the bombing goes on and everything, they're still surprised. They say, hey, they kill babies. Yeah, I know, that's what they do. That's their daily business. That happens every single day. It's as sad as it is. That's nothing special when you're in a war with Russians. That's normal. And so, yeah, I think, let's say, to shock the West or to show them what's going on, it was good that Bucha was so much in the media and got so much attention. But I mean, we know stuff like this happened a lot on different levels in different cities and villages. I'm still, like every day, I'm surprised how stupid people keep themselves in a very open society like Germany. I don't understand it.
Indeed, and I remember I wrote an open letter to addressing our German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who was famous for her concept of feminist foreign policy. And I wrote that in early February 22, saying here that if you are for real feminist foreign policy, then you need to arm Ukraine and arm Ukrainian women, because here are examples, not from the World War II, not from the 60s or 70s, from the last 20 years, we can prove that mass rape is Russia's concept of terrorizing the population and breaking the will of the local population. And we can see it in Chechnya. We can see it since 2014 in Russia-occupied Donbass. In Central African Republic, it was so massive that the United Nations, where Russia has so many influence, so much influence. The United Nations had issued a special report on Wagnerite groups using rape against girls, women, and men as a tool of terror. And then that is what you should expect in Ukraine. There will be mass rape. And then everyone in Germany said, oh, we couldn't expect that. Of course you could if you have had a big time invested into learning what Russians are doing. But how do you feel with all your experience of war zones when you are in Germany and when you talk to this thing? Do you feel that people just don't want to listen to that because it's too scary, it's too hurtful, they don't know what to do with all this knowledge?
To me, it seems most people just don't care about anything. Like, let's say they care about their vacation, if their salary is on time, and if beer stays cheap. And maybe, when the butter price gets up by a cent, then we're close to like setting the government on fire. And then there's a very long gap, and then there is like people in the other countries get tortured and nobody cares. And it's really, most of the people, they just don't care. And then if you say, yeah, it might affect you, like when the energy prices went up, then they said, okay, then Ukraine should stop the war immediately because, my heating is getting expensive. They say there is a Simpsons episode where whenever something happens, they just ask, will the beer getting more expensive? And the government says no. They say, oh, good. And I mean, 20 years ago, I found this hilarious, and now I know it's the truth. It's just how most people work. And then when I talk to people who are like more interested in the world, usually they say, okay, that's exactly what I expected, but like I read this or that in the newspaper. Is it really that bad? Or is it just like the one case which was worse? And like they have a few questions, but like details. But I think there's a huge gap between a few who are interested and a lot. Basically, their brain ends in one direction at the like eastern border of Germany, and then the other direction, like at Mallorca, a sunny island where you can drink a lot of beer, and that's where their whole life plays. And yeah, basically, I can't even talk to these people about it, because when you start with like what happens in Ukraine, it's like, oh, there's a war. Okay, who, why? And then after 1 minute, they say, oh, that's so complicated. There are two parties at war, not just one. Okay, I don't even get this story. It's too much for me. And it's, yeah, I don't even know where to start to explain the world to those people. And I mean, if they were like 10 years old, I would say, okay, this will take some time. But they're like 30, 40. They have a life. And yeah, but I think as long as energy prices stay low, as long as beer is not getting expensive, it's hard to explain anything to them regarding Ukraine. It's very sad.
But that is actually surprising, because Germany actively participates in foreign military missions since at least 2001. Like, we sent our first soldiers to the foreign fighting missions, not some observation missions or like peacekeeping missions, but to fighting missions in Afghanistan in 2001. And since that time, we had our soldiers in Mali, around the Somalia shore, etc. Our officers were captured by the Russian soldiers in 2014 in the east of Ukraine, the soldiers who were commanded to go to the OSCE mission. And we have seen videos of German colonel or lieutenant colonel, I don't remember exactly, who was put on his knees in his military uniform and were filmed. And there was like a ransom demanded for him, and then allegedly Gerhard Schröder has negotiated, etc. But we are in all these military confrontations since 2 decades, more than 2 decades, and in Ukraine since over a decade. And still it looks to be a surprise for many people in Germany and in the West that we are fighting a war.
Yeah, but if you go to a subway in Berlin right now, you tell exactly the story and said, have you heard of it? I guarantee you less than 10% will say I know. And if they say, yeah, I know about Afghanistan, and then you ask them, show it to me on a map, and who did we fight? And I guess that's basically end of the line. It's like more or less on this day, like 20 years ago, or roughly, there was an incident where GSG-9 guys, two of them were killed close to Baghdad in Fallujah when they basically escorted a convoy. Basically a normal task, nothing too bad, nothing to worry about. But it went utterly wrong when like scavengers opened fire on them, and two were killed. And basically you, me, and everybody around us will say, yeah, of course, we know Ermel and Omar, and they got killed, and it was horrible. It was like, it's rare that GSG-9 guys get killed. But again, yesterday I talked to friends, and they said, was GSG-9. They didn't even know this term. Yeah, but it's like if you say like FBI, never heard that term, doesn't ring a bell. And so it's like if you never heard of a fire department or something. But I mean, that's a problem here. You, me, and the audience here, we all know these things. Or it's like people around us will listen to this, people who are educated on this. And I think that's why it's so strange for me to talk, let's say, to normal people. It's like you're talking to aliens or something. But I still have no idea how to even make them interested in this. Also, when they say, but that has nothing to do with my life, say, well, that a lot of refugees are coming here, and no, never heard that. Said, okay, but energy prices went up, yeah, okay, that they heard. But everything else, if you try to make any connection between what's happening there and why it's important for them, or how it's. There are two steps. Like if you tell them it's important, they say, does it affect my personal life? Because if not, it's not important. And then if you try to make this case, they say, I don't care.
Look, you're the person who decided to bring a significant piece of workday life from Ukraine to Berlin. And you have literally brought a 60 tons rack of a Russian tank, and it was installed in Berlin for several days in front of the Russian embassy in very center of Berlin. How came you up to that idea, and why did the Berlin City Hall oppose you?
Yeah, basically few things came together. Like this, people don't care about anything, but if there is a tank in front of you, a lot of people are curious and say, oh, it's a tank, want to see it. And so I thought, okay, maybe we can use this to transport the story to transport some information, and that worked pretty well. But also we thought, a lot of people have never seen a tank in their life, and a tank, they think it's the most frightening thing you can see. And everybody in the military will say yes and no. It depends on how you use it. And so I thought bringing a destroy tank, showing like, hey, it's this much of metal between life and death, and it can blow up very easily. So just to show, it can be very scary, but it can be done in a second. And like as a starter for a discussion, like, you heard of this, you've seen this in TV, here it is, and then here we go. And the basic idea was bring one of those things, or maybe several, I had no idea at the beginning, and then put them somewhere in Berlin, most likely in front of the Russian embassy, and basically return to sender. And then we said, okay, we want to do it. And then we told the district, hey, we're going to do this. And they said no. And then they came up with, the whole story is so incredibly long, it's crazy, but it took 6 months, and they had 14 main reasons why it's not okay. And it was
what were the reasons?
Yeah, it was like one of the coolest one was, imagine somebody is riding his bicycle. He could be so distracted that he just fall off his bicycle and hit his head. And we said, okay, I don't think this is likely. And I mean, if you ever visited Berlin, there's so many strange things here. A tank isn't even the strangest you will see. And then they said, yeah, but the Syrian refugees, they could be traumatized by this. Said, okay, what's the base for this opinion because I was there. I talked to a lot of those people. Don't think it works like this. And I said,
I think the
no,
Syrian refugees
but
would be happy to see a destroyed Russian tank.
yeah, right. And then it went on and on, stupid like this. And really, it was between laughable and like annoying. But luckily, the court saw it the same way. They said, yeah, you bring reason after reason, but I don't understand any of those. And so at the end, the court says, okay, it's a done deal. You can bring the tank. And the idea of the city was making the court case so expensive that we can't afford doing it. And this is really, really bad for democratic government to try to make something so expensive that a citizen can't make use of his right. And that was really bad. But at the end, they lost, and we made it.
Yeah, I remember it, and I was thinking all the time, like, what are they thinking about? Like, it looked like they wanted to sabotage your
Yeah,
your efforts because they
yes,
just didn't want the Russian embassy to be annoyed, but they
yeah,
didn't dare to express it. And the mayor of Berlin was a representative of a social democratic party, the party of Olaf Scholz and Gerhard Schröder and many others.
hmm
And it was like obviously understandable that they didn't want to uh, extra provoke, as they believed, or make Russian unhappy with that tank.
yeah. I mean, they could just bring a Russian flag and say, hey, this is our party, and it would be much easier this way. And also, I think, if your friend applies for a good job, you don't make him lose a good job. And I mean, if Schröder makes so much money with supporting like a war criminal, of course his buddy want him to keep the job. That's normal, but it doesn't work in a democracy. Yeah, but it's very ugly. And I mean, it was on different levels. This was the Social Democrats, but also the mayor of the district in Berlin. They have their own mayors because the city is so big. She was from the Green Party and she opposed it in any possible way. And basically, her district, like government or whatever, they financed the court case on that side. And then after like months, I finally was able to talk to her because she refused all the time. Then she told me she never heard of this court case anywhere. Of course, everything said like from the mayor of the district of Mitte, this is like the court case, blah, blah, blah. Never heard of it, never saw anything in the media, not in the news, didn't receive my emails, didn't receive my letters, didn't know that I was there to talk to her. No idea. Yeah, there was just one really interesting part of it. I said, okay, if she never heard of it, I believe her. But then how did she give an interview about it 1 week earlier? Hmm. Time machine, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is indeed strange. But
hmm
I remember also that there was a very interesting development around that tank. I'm sorry that I stick to that tank so much, but
hmm
that whole story moved me a lot because there was an action several days after that, after you have installed the tank, and the Russian embassy and some pro-Russian Germans started to fund, obviously, the campaign of bringing flowers to to that tank, like
It was,
honoring the Russian soldiers. And I was a person who back then saw it. I
yeah.
wanted to look at the tank next day, and I saw it was full of flowers. I said, we need to remove them, just remove them, because it's not okay when in our city there is a campaign honoring Russia's genocidal
Mm,
soldiers. And we have made a call online, and many people in Berlin came and
yeah.
helped to clean that tank from the flowers. And we also put the pictures of killed Ukrainian civilians and destroyed Ukrainian cities on that tank, like explaining the bystanders why it is so important to do it. And I was really impressed how many of people in Berlin joined our action to remove these flowers as a symbol of supporting for genocide. But what do you think after this tank was presented in Berlin? What do you think overall about the German support for Ukraine? We see that debate about Taurus and weapons, and it seems that Chancellor Scholz is not that much representing the mood of an average German.
Now, first, regarding these flowers, it was hilarious because I mean, there was a small truck approaching, and there was a queue of people waiting for nothing. They were standing basically on the sidewalk, all Russian speaking, and like waiting for something. He said, what are they doing? And then this truck stopped and everybody got a bunch of flowers. And then we asked them, what are you doing? Oh, randomly, we were here and we found these flowers here. And I mean, so typical, so stupid Russian lies that you say, okay, it's you. Then why did you stop in front of us and queuing up? I mean, but do it. But the funny thing about it was they put so much effort in this, and no German ever got it. That's the funny thing, because a normal German has no idea about the flower colors and all these things. It's flowers. And I mean, I was there every day, and I talked to a lot of people, and they said, oh, it's so nice that so many people are bringing, like, you know, like gray flowers for the dead Ukrainians, and it's really nice to see the support. No one got that it was for Russian soldiers. Everybody thought it's for Ukrainians. And we said, that's so great and so nice that you put so much effort in it, and nobody but your little bubble understands it. That was kind of funny. Yeah, but also in general, I mean, we were there all the time and talked to a lot of people, and most, like a lot of people just got it what it was. A few asked and said, interesting, and only a few were against it. And I mean, of course, that's kind of biased because it was a destroyed Russian tank, blah, blah, blah. But also on average, I mean, Scholz with his, like, we're helping thingy, his party has 15% in the, you know, in the forecast right now. That's not impressive. And I mean, this argument, we are helping more than anybody else, said, okay, just to like picture this, if a few thugs are coming up and beating Scholz, and I walk by and throw in like €5, I can say, hey, I was the biggest donator. I did everything I could. What else should I have done? You know, I gave more money than anybody else here. That's the same story. That doesn't help. And now the Germans are like, yeah, we are helping. I say, yeah, but not enough. I mean, we're one of the richest countries in the world. We're giving peanuts. We're keeping back a lot of stuff they need. And basically, our government is sabotaging a lot of the big companies, like weapon companies, who say we want to deliver. And our government says, no, you're not allowed to. There's a lot of shit going on. And I'm still waiting for the big companies to step forward and tell like the public all the shit everybody around behind the scenes knows since 2 years, how they are kept back. That's very disgraceful from our government, of course. And I mean, obviously, our three parties that form a government, they have less than 1/3 of the votes behind them now in the forecasts. Yeah, it's not going well for them. And I mean, I don't see any proper direction. We are not really pro-Putin, or not openly. Of course, we support him in any possible way. I mean, we can trade all kind of goods with Russia still. It's not forbidden. Also, people think we're not allowed to trade with Russia. Of course, we're allowed to. Tourists from Russia welcome in Germany. All these things are still okay. And a lot of people don't know this, or don't get it, or don't fact check it. Okay. And then the other thing is, like it's not only Ukraine, but I mean, that's a big thing right now. But neither the Green Party, nor the Liberals, nor the Social Democrats are doing anything in this conflict properly, I would say. Like also when the Liberals said, yeah, but we want to have Taurus delivered, and the Green Party said, and then there was a vote on that in the parliament, and they said no. But then 5 minutes later on social media, they said again, yeah, but you know, I voted no, but you know, really, I meant yes. So, okay, explain this to the voters.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have seen it like all the time as the Greens and the Liberals, who gave all their hawkish interviews how much they are for Taurus for Ukraine, they voted no, and that is exactly what you explained right now, and the whole discussion was absolutely stuck. And after that, we get information that the producer of Taurus missiles has stopped producing additional missiles because they don't get any order from the government. And the government says, okay, we cannot deliver Taurus because we need them for ourselves for a case of war. But why don't you produce more Taurus in this case? Why have you stopped your ordering them? Is there any logical arguments why Scholz government is doing that way?
Yeah, I think he's used to lie to stupid people. And I think no one in our government really has experience with hard conflicts. And I mean, Zelensky didn't have it either. Everybody knows the problems people have with Zelensky, but in that moment, he did an amazing job with just doing what needs to be done. I think they can be lucky that at that moment he was in charge and didn't run like an Afghan government. But in his case, like he is basically the comedian who became a politician at peacetime. If he had run away, I would say, yeah, I can understand him. The Afghan government was elected when they were fighting the Taliban and they knew what they were up to. So that was a different story. And he stayed. And I mean, they have plenty of problems, but in general, I still think it was a lucky pick for them. And I think, but I mean, first of all, Scholz is, don't know where to start. He can do nothing but basically helping his friends getting legally bribes or whatever. I don't know how to call it. But I mean, there were so many shitty deals he made to basically finance friends and family. That's really bad. But then the others teamed up with him, knowing this. Yeah, sorry, then you're in one shitty team. And I mean, the Green and the Liberals could go to the CDU, to our how do you call it? Yeah, one of the big parties, and just say, well, you give us a chancellor, we can kind of accept, and then we do what's called a konstruktives Misstrauensvotum. They say we want to change the chancellor. It has been done before in Germany, beginning of the 80s. That's how democracy works, done. But then they come up with all kinds of reasons why they don't want to deal with the CDU. We say, okay, there are plenty of reasons, but you keep up with Scholz? Like, I don't get it. Or do a new election. Yeah, I mean, that sucks, but at this moment, we don't really have a government that can do anything. And the only reason I find is, first of all of them want to make money with their jobs right now, and they don't want to leave it. It's not about the country, it's about their power trip or whatever. And then on the other hand, they just don't know what to do. I mean, they run around like we had a chicken, and maybe they should go to any nation which is more experienced with war, whatever. I mean, the French, always forgotten, but basically in every major conflict with a lot of soldiers in the last year, then especially the British, I mean, there are many reasons why it's bad that they left the European Union, but especially now their expertise on how to do wars and war logistics and everything, that would be very helpful for us. And so I think they listen to the wrong people and they care much more about their money and their friends' money than about like Ukraine or even this country, because what they do is not good for our country as well.
Absolutely, and when we see like how much of support Ukraine got from France and first of all the United Kingdom, it is amazing. And in the very first days, even before the full-scale invasion, the Brits provided Ukrainians with Enno anti-tank guided missiles, which practically saved, together with javelins, saved Kyiv from occupation. And then it was Macron who, with his initiative to provide French tanks to Ukraine, has moved the whole debate and discussion about Germany's Leopard 2 tanks. And now maybe Macron will also make next steps in providing Ukraine more of military support, including troops on the ground, which would be a game changer. But coming back to your initiative of how to change people's perception of the war, you're a founder of a very special museum in Berlin Story Bunker, where you try to bring many conflicts and wars of the past closer to people, telling them the stories which are behind these wars. What is the story you are telling now to your visitors about Russia-Ukrainian war?
Yeah, right now, I mean, it's a big bunker. It's a real bunker from the Second World War, 6,500 square meter. But most of it is used by the big exhibition about the Nazi regime. And so we didn't know that this war will be, I mean, that the war in Ukraine will be so big. So basically, we didn't have rooms left for an exhibition, but we said we have to do something. So basically, we used the cafe and the hallway in front of it to make a small exhibition, like 50 square meter, 60 square meter about Ukraine, just explaining the basics, like there is this country, Ukraine, it's around the corner, as far away as Barcelona, kind of. It's big, it's nice, and they have a problem, and then basically explain the story very, very shortly. And then we have in the hallway an exhibition about memes and war, because people usually find it funny in the first moment, but only because they don't understand how deep memes go, and they think, it's a funny picture on the internet and the text. Yeah, it is, but it has much more levels. And basically, we try to explain classical propaganda to those who only know memes, and we try to explain memes to those who only know propaganda, and say, hey, we're in the middle, right here. And so in the small exhibition about Ukraine, we tell the people basically what Ukraine is, what it was, how it started with the Soviet Union, and why so many people are Russian, talking Russian, and also like a little bit of an FAQ, like, but if they not Russian, why do they speak Russian? Because they were forced to. So, okay. And then, but didn't Ukraine start the war? No. It's very simple. The answer is very short. No, they didn't do it. And stuff like this. And so we try to explain to an average citizen what's going on. And basically, it's like a very long FAQ. And like, if Putin is so bad, why did we deal with him so much? Because he's rich. Why do we deal with Saudi Arabia? Why do we deal with China? Not because of the human rights there. It's why don't we deal with North Korea? They are poor, no money. Okay, so we can say they are the bad guys, but not Saudi Arabia. And so we try to explain it a little bit, just to get people started. And since we have boots on the ground in Ukraine on our own, we brought a lot of like smaller exhibits right now. We have a few parts of a Shahed drone. We have a transport box of a Javelin and stuff like this. We have a few plates from Bulletproof Vest with bullet holes. And usually that's what also normal people find interesting, stuff they haven't seen. And we basically use it just to catch them, to get them in. And then, so basically say, okay, see the crazy stuff come in. And then again, we use this to like transport the story or to tell the story. And that also works pretty well. But because people have seen like 2-3 hours of the other exhibitions before, usually their brain is like full. They still, we want to give them the chance, or we want to try to educate them on this. And if it's too much, fine. And if they still see it a little bit and learn a little bit, then we're happy.
What was the weirdest question you have got about Ukraine?
Really, the weirdest that came again and again was, if it's a country, you can't make up these stupid questions. So of course, what else would you invade? You can't invade a non-country. This is not how war works. They say, but isn't it an island or in Russia or something? No, it's really stupid. This came a few times. And then like also sometimes when they ask, but didn't Ukraine start? You say, okay, let's figure this out. Why do you think Ukraine might have started this, or how? I don't know. Okay, but how did you came up with this point now? Don't know, heard it somewhere. Said, but you know how the war started? No. Okay, that's the basic level where we have to start with people. And I mean, those are people who go to a museum and are willing to pay for education. That are the smarter ones. I think the baseline, if you just go to a normal subway and ask some people in the subway, Not sure if they know if Ukraine is a country. So the starting point is really low. But just to say this, like our big museum about the Nazi regime, the most common questions still daily are if Hitler really died at the end of the Second World War, or if he lived happily ever after. And we say, well, there are so many proofs that he was dead. It's like stacks and stacks of proof. People say, I never heard of it. Okay, did you ever look it up? No. Okay. I never heard of baseball rules. I never looked them up. I have no idea of baseball. That's why I don't know anything about baseball rules. But I don't ask questions like this. I don't ask, is a baseball ball round or is it square? Because I know I could look it up in a second. And a lot of people have questions about really things they should know and they don't. That's crazy. And so, yeah. But on the other hand, I think as stupid and annoying as it is, they ask us questions because they see us as the experts. I'm such a big expert on Ukraine. I know that it is a country. And then, I mean, don't laugh at them, explain it. That's what we do. And I mean, that's what the exhibition is for. Yeah, it is a country and it's huge. It's really huge. And it's around the corner. And that's the basics with which we start. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that is important. You need to address the audience with all possible ways, and it is not a duty of people to know everything, but it is, of course, a duty of everyone to ask questions before providing an opinion, and that is what differs people
Yeah.
who know the limits of their knowledge and people who just come up with as they believe, wonderful ideas like freezing the conflict, or why doesn't Ukraine just give a bit of territory to Russia? Why not signing a peace with Putin? We've tried to do it many times. Like Ukraine had at least 20 ceasefire agreements signed and 200 ceasefire agreements
Yeah.
announced, and it didn't help. Well, it is, of course, a never ending story, and thank you so much for your time. Enno Lenze, founder of Berlin Story Bunker, author of books, and a security expert who spent his time in Ukraine, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and other countries. And he has a lot of stories to tell you. So thank you. Thank you so much, Enno.
Thank you.
And don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to this channel, and wait for the next interviews.